Hello, friends. It's Colleen Lowe with the Lowe Group Real Estate and your favorite podcaster. We're here to uplift and inspire you, and I'm so excited for today's guest. You're going to love her. Her name's Jennifer Cavender, and I want to read you her bio. Isn't she the cutest thing ever? And then here, I'm going to read you guys. She's awesome. She has 20 years experience as a CPA, so she's really smart, leading audit teams and advising businesses in their pursuit of growth and problem solving. And in her career in public accounting, she led the mentorship program for her firm. She leads teams through effective engagement completion and help client develops more effective control in their organizations. She was consistently winning awards for sales, marketing, and mentoring. Jennifer realized her ability to identify strengths of individuals on her team and use those strengths to build their confidence and effectiveness. She has now dedicated the next chapter of her professional life to working intimately with inspiring business leaders and their teams to create more joy in the workplace through effective use of teams and leadership. Who doesn't want more joy in the workplace, right? She has been married for 21 years, has two beautiful girls, are they
16 and 11.
16 and 11, yeah. And spends much of her free time connecting with other like-minded women, loves hiking and doing just about anything on the beach near her home in Torrance, California, which is really close to me. Isn't that fun? So welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so excited to interview you. I also met you through our connection of Maya.
Yes.
And what a gift that is to be part of that group of women. And you are one of the leaders of, in my opinion, in that group. And it's interesting. Tell me, I know you were an accountant before, but your main thing is about joy. When I met you up in Agoura Hills, you were talking about you want to have more joy in the workplace. Tell me why that's important to you and why you think, how did it just all come about?
Yeah. So I really came from a CPA firm that understood this, but they never really spoke about it. In a service company, your only asset is your people. And so if you're not keeping them happy, you're going to have a lot of turnover, which is very expensive. It's frustrating for your other employees. And that firm did it pretty well for the industry. In the CPA public accounting industry, there's a lot of turnover. And so I learned that importance from them. And then about a year before I left my firm, I had a prospect come to us, and it was a nonprofit organization, and they were having a lot of struggles. They had a lot of new income coming in. The activity had significantly increased, and their accounting department was overwhelmed, and they didn't know how. They were just frustrated and overwhelmed. And they came to us and said, I just want my finance department to have more joy. And that just struck me. It hit me to my core. And I thought, that's really what we should be pursuing. And what I found after doing much research is that people actually are about 12 to 15% more effective when they are happy in the workplace.
The employees themselves.
The employees themselves.
How much?
12 to 15%.
Yeah, that's a crazy, right?
Yeah. So who couldn't use 15% more effectiveness, right?
Out of the same people who are there every day anyway.
Exactly.
Now, I have a question for you, because we're here on this podcast together. And last night I watched your Contadora speech,
Yes.
your talk. And for those of you that are just joining us, the Contadora speech was Maya Komaroda, our coach, put on a program, and she had all these inspiring women share their a meaningful story, and then it was tied to a message. And it was one after another, and it was live. It wasn't pre-recorded. And in your story, and I'm not going to share, I want you to share kind of in your own words, like it sounds like one of the number one fears for people is public speaking, right? And I don't have that fear, so I know, but most people do, right? I was a teacher, and I don't know if because I was a teacher for so long, that if that made it so I'm not scared to speak in front of people.
Yeah.
But I do get nervous about a million other things. But tell me about, how did you get to be here, right? And like, were you ever scared of speaking in front of people? Because I think a lot of people are scared to speak in front of people.
Absolutely. It was one of my biggest fears when I was in college and I had to take a public speaking class and I just wasn't doing well. And then I had started out at a junior college and I transferred to a university and I realized that all of the students that were getting jobs were really great at this and they were getting up in front of student organizations and speaking and doing events. And so I determined in my mind that I was going to have a job when I graduated and then I needed to get past this fear.
Past the fear of public speaking?
Past the fear of
So
public
you were
speaking.
shocked? Were you shocked that people in the accounting industry had to do public speaking?
I absolutely was. I had chosen that career because it was stable and because I knew I would have a job. There was lots of jobs. But I never thought about the fact that I would have to communicate effectively and in front of an audience. And once I realized that, I had this sort of aha moment. And then I determined that, you know, I was going to work myself through it.
Yeah. And then how did you work yourself through it? Because that's a huge fear, okay? And I think that fear keeps us all from living our best lives. And it keeps us feeling overwhelmed, and we don't take action. We overthink things, and then we don't take action on living our best life and trying the things we would, you know, I feel like living our divine purpose. How did you overcome this huge fear? Like, what steps? Walk our listeners through step by step. What can they do to overcome a big fear that they have? Like, there's something holding them back. What did you do?
Yeah, well, one of the reasons I selected that story for Contadora is because I realized that this was a theme throughout my life. It wasn't just this one experience. I had consistently moved towards the thing that I was most afraid of. And in the end, I found a superpower on the other side of that fear, right? And so what I realized is there were things that I would consistently do to move myself past those fears. And the first thing is really, you have to decide.
You have to decide.
You have to be resolute in that decision. This is what I'm going to do, and there's nothing that's going to get in my way. And whatever comes, I'm going to find the solution. And that was one of the most important steps. And then after that, it's just about planning and then really focusing on just the very next small step. And so for me, with the public speaking, I determined I was just going to do it as much as I could. So I ran for every student position I could find. I asked my pastor if I could speak in front of the church and read scripture before service. I just found every opportunity I could to get into that position that I was afraid of until I got comfortable. But when you think about the other fearful situations that I've been in, it's really about that focus on just the next step. Because when you think too far ahead, that's when the fear comes in and you think, I can't do that.
Yeah, I think when it's too big, people get frozen.
Yes,
They get frozen.
absolutely.
How do you feel about public speaking today?
I love it. It actually has become a superpower of mine. In my firm, I became one of the best public speakers, and it became something that really set me apart in my career and something that really brought me joy.
Yeah, so you find joy in it now. Isn't that crazy? It's your superpower.
I do.
Yeah, and I think that we can take any fear we have and turn it into a superpower if we choose something that we're scared of.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I have another question for you. What is the best piece of advice anyone's ever given you?
That's such a good question. I think, you know, a lot of people will tell you to just be yourself, and that is really great advice. But I think for me, the best piece of advice was actually your fear is your guide. Because once I realized that that was a theme in my life, everything sort of opened up, and I saw so much more opportunity and potential in what I was doing and what I was capable of when somebody actually reflected those words back to me. And it was something that was already within me, right? It was part of who I was, but I had never saw it before. So when someone, actually it was Maya, who said to me, let that fear be your guide, it just, again, hit me and became something that really set me apart
Isn't that
and
interesting?
changed my trajectory.
Yeah. In fact, tell people, what do you do now? Because you're not working for a CPA firm anymore, right?
Right.
And so you left corporate America.
I did just a few months ago. I left my CPA firm after 21 years. I loved working there. I loved who I worked with, and I loved my clients. But I just felt this overwhelming desire to do something more and to really impact people and companies and organizations. And so now what I'm doing is helping organizations and companies reignite that joy in the workplace through effective use of teams and leadership skills.
That's awesome. So you help teams and companies, right? People and companies bring more joy to their workplace, right?
Yes.
How do people find you? Because I think most of our listeners here either work somewhere where they're not experiencing joy, or their bosses, maybe there's people who are managers or senior managers. How can people reach out to you and find you so you could come and help them?
Yeah, so I have a website, robinadvisors.com. And that name came from my middle name. And then if you look up the definition of Robin, it's sort of on the website there. It really connected with my mission and vision. That's probably the best place you can find me. That's ROBIN, advisors, ADVISORS.com. And then I do have a Facebook account, which is just Jennifer Cavender, as well as an Instagram account, which is Jen with 2 N's, C.
And we will link all this down below, so it'll be easy to find. But I just want people to know that it's such. I feel like people are feeling overwhelmed, fearful, stuck, especially the last 2 years with the pandemic. And I just feel like when you told me, when I first met you and we were in the car and you were sharing your message with me, I was like, oh my gosh, it's an overwhelming need in our society to have more joy in the workplace. And I just think that it's timely.
Yes, absolutely. This whole idea of overwhelm and burnout is really something that I'm focusing on as one of my first offerings and workshops. I do a workshop every month that is called Belief Busting. And what we do in that is we deal with why are you so overwhelmed and what is the first step that you can take to changing that feeling of being overwhelmed and burnout.
Yeah, and I think it's so incredible that it's the first step, because don't you feel like the first step is the thing that keeps us from going?
Yes, yes. The first step can be the hardest, but it can also be the most impactful.
Yeah. And then I have a question for you. When people, just in general, or when you ever feel down, I'm really about energy, and I pay very close attention to my energy and where I am every day. And I don't just have a to-do list, but I have my to-be list, and I write it down every day. And how do you, if you're feeling down, and we all have moments when we're feeling down, that you cannot escape it. I'm one of the most positive people, and I have days where I just sit in, like to sit in bed, curl my head up, pull the covers over my head and watch Gilmore Girl reruns, right? But what do you do to help bring yourself up?
Yeah, it's such a good question because we deal with this a lot, and especially in this era of the craziness that's all around us, right? And so, yeah, there's a lot of practices, and you really have to find the one that works for you. But I actually have implemented a practice called the Chair of Joy. Yes, and this is something that I do routinely, and I learned it from a wonderful professional. Her name is Cheryl Lynn, and I've now become an ambassador for her company called Joyly. And so she developed this practice.
Hold on, we have a technical problem. Keep going, my beautiful friend.
Okay. She developed this practice where you basically find your favorite place to sit. It could be outside, it could be inside, wherever, and you reflect on 2 joyful moments in your life. And you really feel and remember those moments. And you can really change your vibration by just putting yourself in the state of that memory. And there's a few other things that go into that practice. And she has a recording that I like to share that's on my website as well. But I love walking my clients through this process because they really do have, like, it really does impact them. Last week I walked a prospect through this, and she started to tear up because she realized she hasn't recognized a lot of the joyful moments in her life. And so it was really helpful for her to do that.
I love that. It's called
The Chair of Joy.
The Chair of Joy. See, this is why I like to ask these questions. I definitely want to go through that experience. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, we could record it together one day if you like.
We should, right? Are we having problems? What was I going to tell you? The joy chair. Isn't it amazing when you impact someone, taking them through an exercise that transports them? Because I also think that people don't realize that they can shift their own energy on their own. Like now that client's been through that process, she knows that she can recreate that on her own.
Absolutely. And that's the point, is that we can decide to be joyful.
Mm-hmm. It's a choice. Mm-hmm. You know, people who don't know about all my story, you know, with my son with cancer and my other son who struggled with addiction, they'll say, oh, you're just all so happy and you have nothing going on in your life. And I'm like, no, it's a choice. Yeah. We choose every day.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, we choose. And I remember when I was angry at God, not angry. Well, I was angry at God. I was crying mostly, but kind of irritated with him when I found out they hadn't told us Carter had cancer, but you could tell it was bad. And I was asking him, like, what is going on and why is this happening? And just so many questions when you find out your kid has cancer, you know.
Yeah.
And it's so funny is I post on social media every day about what do you appreciate. I've been doing it for years. Mm-hmm. And God asked me, what do you appreciate about your son having cancer?
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I appreciate about Carter having cancer? And even though you might be in a spot where you can't figure out what you appreciate or what your joy is, you can figure it out, because it took me about 12 hours, you know, to come up with a pretty solid list of things that I appreciated about the situation. But I do think that even in our toughest moments that we can have joy, and it is a choice. And I think that that's the hard thing, is that people don't realize. And that's why we have this podcast, because we're going to help people, right? Yes. Okay, I wanted to ask you another question. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, guys. Sorry, I'm a little discombobulated because we had a big technical thing here, right? Okay. How important do you think finding a coach or a mentor is?
Oh, my goodness. Such a great question.
Mm-hmm.
A coach and a mentor is so important. I mean, in my experience, mm-hmm. I have gravitated to people as a mentor without having a formal mentor coach relationship, mm-hmm. probably since I was little. Mm-hmm. And then at the point where I felt really sort of unable to see through or past a situation in my career, I reached mm-hmm. out professionally for a coach. So as soon as I hit the manager level mm-hmm. in my CPA firm, I reached out and hired a professional coach. And so I've been working with coaches and mentors for over 15 years. And that has really made such a difference, because they can see you in a different light and they can show you a mirror without telling you exactly what you need to know.
Yes.
And so when they do this and you have these aha moments, it's so beautiful for you to see yourself without someone saying exactly, you know, what's going on. So it's been amazing for me.
They help you self-discover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you learn, you know what I've learned is all the answers are inside of us.
Absolutely.
And when we learn to trust our intuition and the answers that are inside of us or that come from divine, right? When we start tuning into that, then we can accomplish a lot more.
Absolutely. And that's what coaches do is they show you that mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aren't you glad that you've done that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So we recommend that you find mentors, and a mentor and a coach doesn't even have to be someone you pay for. I do think paid coaching is worth it, and it makes a huge difference in your life. But I also know that there's lots of free resources that people can access. And there's people who want to help people, and I believe that God brings all the right people into your life at the right times.
He absolutely does. There's people in your network, there's people in your family, in your friend group, in your community that would love to help. As soon as I left my career and started my new business, I connected with someone who had been doing what I'm doing for 40 years.
40 years.
And he's been mentoring me for the last 4 months. And so it's been amazing.
What a gift, right?
Yes.
I do think that we don't realize how much people like to help. And it's interesting that we all like to help other people, but we don't want to be receivers of getting help.
Yeah.
And when we become good receivers is where I think the magic happens, because when you try to do things by yourself, it's difficult. But when you go in a group or with other people, I just feel like it's a better outcome.
Yes.
Quicker.
Yes. Absolutely.
Quicker outcome. And I think that we don't always know where our blind sides are. And it's nice to have other people that see our blind sides or see things that we don't even know. Sometimes you don't even know the right questions to ask.
Yes.
Because you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely. And yeah, eventually you'll get there because we've been given the gift of wisdom and we've been trained in whatever we're doing. But if you want to get there faster, like you mentioned, having a mentor and having a coach who's already been there is so helpful to condense those decades into days, as Maya says, right?
Yeah, condense the decades into days. That's what Maya would say. And it really makes a huge difference. In fact, it's so funny is this is something else I wanted to talk to you about, because we both are going to be in the book, When Love Speaks.
Yes.
Which is such an honor and a privilege. And it's interesting. John doesn't like that I have my little paper here. Sorry, guys. Eventually, I'll memorize all these questions, but right now, I don't have them all memorized, so I have a cheat sheet. So I am living proof that you can just take imperfect action. It'll all work out. But so we're all going to be in this book. Well, not all of us, but there's quite a few of us. And it's coming out December 8th. And it's going to be in Rolling Stone magazine. And do you think people should buy it?
Absolutely. I mean, if you want to be inspired, if you want to give the gift of inspiration to others because it comes out right before the holidays, it's such a perfect time. And we're going to have like a 24-hour launch. And so across all time zones, there'll be, stuff going on in all different areas around the world. It's going to be super fun.
It's exciting. And you know what one of the things I love about the book is that they're short reads. And so it's not like it's a compilation of different people's stories that are inspirational. And it's you can just grab it and read a little here, read a little there, and it's just nice.
Yeah, start your day with a 3-minute story.
3-minute story. They're all 3-minute stories. When I first heard that, when she told me I had to tell my story in 3 minutes, I was like, oh my gosh. And you know what's amazing is the stories are amazing. And in 3 minutes, it's very impactful. And each one at the end tells what their message is too, like their I believe statement.
Yes.
And I don't know. I really hope that you guys will get the book. And I feel like my goal is to spread love and positivity everywhere and light. And that book is going to really help spread a lot of love and positivity.
Yes.
And then you guys, I have to look and see what else I want to ask her. Isn't that fun? See, I have all these questions. Oh. What advice do you have for people that are listening that are not living their best life right now, but in their mind they're rehashing over and over that they should do something different and make a change because they're unhappy?
Yeah, I mean, again, it all goes back to that deciding. If you want to change your life, you have to just decide to do it. And there's all kinds of fancy things that we can talk about, how people changed their lives and what they did and what inspired them to do it. If you're inspired right this moment to do something different, decide it's going to happen and then figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah, decide. And why do you think people don't take action? And why don't they decide? So few of us do. I'm just wondering, what do you think?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is self-doubt. That was huge for me. I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. I didn't have people that were encouraging me to do that and that were telling me that this was, maybe a strength that I had. And so I had a lot of doubts about what I could accomplish and what I was good at, frankly.
Doubt, self-doubt. I think that's huge. And very few of us, like I didn't grow up with an entrepreneur family. Like I grew up with, my parents both had 9-to-5 type jobs, even though they weren't really 9-to-5. But you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I'm the first person in my family to be an entrepreneur, and it's a lot to be an entrepreneur. It's very different than working for a company where they tell you what to do and when to do it, and it's it's a big shift. And so I just want you to know we believe in you, and we know that if you make a decision, I promise you the right people are going to show up.
100%.
They do, right?
They absolutely do.
Literally, I did not know this woman a few months ago, and it's just amazing how we're friends now. I know her. We're connected. If I needed help with something, I could reach out to you and you would help me, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
So I do know that the universe will weave it all together. And
we're going to have to go to that restaurant together with the Elvis.
Oh my gosh, you guys, it's so funny is I take care of my great aunt Jean. She's 96, almost 97. And she only likes certain kinds of foods because of her age. She doesn't like, I don't know if it's her age, but she only likes like hamburgers and Mexican food and like American food, but mostly hamburgers and Mexican flautas. Only flautas and hamburgers, really, let's be honest. Okay. And pizza, let's not forget pizza. And so she doesn't want Thai or Japanese anyway, but she lives in an assisted living in Stanton. And she wanted to eat on our way to get her hearing aids adjusted at Costco, but it is mostly Vietnam and Koreatown and in between. And she didn't want to eat at this one Mexican restaurant that we go to a lot right by her house. She wanted to try something new. And I did share with her that I was concerned that between where we were and where we were going, there wasn't going to be anything she wanted because it was all Vietnamese and all Thai and all Korean, right? But mostly Vietnamese, right? And I love all three of those foods. And I'm like, I can help you order, we can figure out something. But she's like, no. And it's so funny. It's like, oh my gosh, we're almost to Costco. We are 1 block away from Costco and I'm going to starve to death. And there was a Mexican restaurant on this main street. And it was all Elvis. It was called, I don't remember what the restaurant was called, but we'll have to go eat there because it was Elvis on the walls, Elvis on the ceiling, Elvis on the everywhere. And your mom loves Elvis, right?
Yes, my mom was a huge Elvis fan. She had an entire room dedicated to Elvis in her house before she passed away. And so when I saw your post, I was like, oh, okay, I need to check this out.
I mean, it's Elvis. And it's a Mexican restaurant. It's on Main Street in Garden Grove, on Old Town Garden Grove. And I can't remember what it was called. It started with an A. Anyway, the food was fantastic. My food was fantastic. I just had a salad. But it's so funny, right? Yeah, Elvis. Elvis is... It's so funny the connections we make, right? With our loved ones, right?
Anyway, yeah, that was cute.
Anyway, my dear friends, I'm going to look at our list one more time. I know John just loves me looking at my list, but I don't want to forget things, right? Oh, have you seen a miracle in your life?
Oh, have I seen a miracle? Yes. I've definitely seen miracles. You want me to share 1 or 100?
Start with 1, because I'm big on miracles.
So I think one of the biggest miracles that stands out for me is a few years after my mom had passed. My mom and I were always close, but there was always some strife in that relationship, and there was always something in between us that we couldn't really figure out how to navigate. And so a few years after she had passed, I was driving home from work. It was late. There was a full moon out, and the full moon had caught my attention, and I just began to cry, and I started having all of these images of my mom. And I had to pull over the car, and I just started bawling, and basically God healed me of all of that negativity and all of the things that I hadn't forgiven her of. We've all got things in the past.
Oh, we do, all of us.
And so it was just such a beautiful miracle that I could release this. And that's really what started my journey on, seeking after things that I wanted and that I enjoyed, and knowing that maybe there was something more for me. And so that to me was a huge miracle. And it maybe isn't defined as a miracle.
That is a miracle.
Others, but the release and I just didn't have that heaviness anymore was truly amazing, and all from just the moon.
All from the moon. In fact, I have a question about, we're talking about release. We're all holding on to things that don't serve us well anymore, right? How can somebody, if you have experience with this, and I don't know, how can people release old beliefs or feelings or emotions that are no longer serving them well, that are holding them back? Like what you did, it was just an amazing, you pulled over, you were in the moment, you didn't try and drive through it, you let it happen in the moment, right?
Yeah, I think that's key, is to really feel those emotions, because so many times we stuff them down, and that is when they become really heavy, and then they cause issues in other areas of our life, and we don't understand why we're not being effective in this area, or why this relationship isn't successful. And so really allowing yourself to feel those emotions and dealing with it in the moment, then you're able to release, right? But it also goes back to something that I deal with in my belief busting workshop as well. I talk about how we can identify those beliefs that are limiting us, and that we can choose to change them, right? Because our beliefs, sometimes we think that we can't change them, that they're just, well, this is my belief, so it must be true. But that belief is actually causing you to have negative results. And if you decide to change that belief, you will get different results.
So you can actually question, what I hear you saying is you can question your long-held beliefs. And
that's the point.
And I think that when we start to question things, that's when we can really let go of things. Because if I hear if something someone says to me, I immediately say no to it. Like in my head, I'm thinking they're wrong. That's not right. That won't work. I'm starting to take notice. Like, why am I so against that? Why did that resonate with me as an immediate, like, they're wrong. That would never work, right?
Yes. I love that awareness that you have.
Because it's like, there's something in me that's making me instantly trigger that, resist that.
Yes.
And probably what they're saying is really important for me to reflect on and start taking it in.
Could be, yep.
Yeah, it could be. And so it's interesting because when we're closed, when we have these beliefs that are so concrete, we're not open.
Exactly.
We're not open. And it's definitely, it's a process of shedding, adopting new things, and then deciding. We have to decide. And I think we have to choose ourselves.
Definitely.
And no one says in school, like when you're in school and you're a kid, no one says, hey.
You don't get this education.
No. No, you have to learn this on your own. Like when we're in school, they teach you to sit down, be quiet, raise your hand, memorize this, regurgitate.
Follow the rules.
Follow the rules.
Yes.
Nothing that's helpful in real life. And I was a teacher, and I love my teachers, and I loved school. Well, I didn't love high school. If you knew me then, or if you're watching this, I ditched a lot of school when I was I did not love high school. I didn't dislike it. I just liked the beach more. And in fact, another living proof that anyone can do anything because I did leave school a lot. You know, it's so funny. It was one of my teachers. She was pulling into she must have had zero period or something, like nothing first period. And she was pulling into the driveway, and I had a convertible, and I was pulling out of the driveway, and she waved at me. And I saw her years later, and she said, where were you going all those times? And I would make it back for her class. I had her later in the day. I would come back a lot. But I said, I was just going to the beach or to get food, or I just didn't see it as a priority,
Yeah.
which thankfully I graduated, which is a miracle, Oh my gosh, you guys. Such a time. Anyway, I'm trying to think, is there anything else I should ask you that I haven't asked you that would be something you think we should share with our listeners?
I mean, I think we addressed a lot today. It's probably for another podcast, but we could talk about my history a little bit before my career. That would be fun.
Yeah. Do you have a fun history too?
Oh, yes.
Uh-huh.
Pretty fun.
Yeah, see?
I also came from, blue collar workers, first to go to college in my family or extended family, all of those things. And so, the things that you have to overcome in order to be a professional and a CPA and all of those things are interesting. Those were interesting times.
I want to ask you, just tell me just a snippet of it, because this is fascinating.
Yeah, I mean.
So you were the first to go to college.
I was. My parents were both alcoholics. My parents split up when I was 6, and then my mom married my stepdad, who was also an alcoholic. And I had 2 older siblings who were 10 and 13 years older, who were also using. And so it was a time of me really being the adult from a very young age, when my sister started having kids when I was 9.
She had kids.
And because she's 13 years older. And so once she started having kids, being in a household of alcoholics, I really became the responsible one and the adult in the household. So that created a whole slew of patterns for me, which is why I selected, a very safe career, because I always felt unstable. And it's why I stayed so long in a career that I knew was not for me, because I wanted stability.
Stability was important because you didn't have it at home.
Exactly.
How do you think that having alcoholics in your family that should have been taking care of you, how do you think that impacted? How did you end up going to college and not getting, so many people in that environment don't go to college, it's a tough environment.
Yeah, only by the grace of God. And I don't know how or why, but I always just knew that the next step was college. And nobody showed me that. Nobody, there was no path laid out for me.
Yeah.
But I had this just desire in my spirit, and there was always someone there to guide me in the next step. Not in the 5 steps from then, but there was always someone to help me fill out the applications, to help me, apply for the financial aid and things like that. And so, yeah.
I think this is the story right here. So this is the story, because I came from a very stable home, right? But I have a perspective on alcoholism from a mother's perspective, not a child, right? And I think that when, like, alcoholism, how do you drink alcohol at all? That's just curious.
I did not until I was about 24 years old.
Yeah.
And I had one, because I thought if I had one sip of alcohol that I would be an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And so I did not until I started to see others that could have one glass of wine and not be an alcoholic. And so now I've never been drunk, but I have had glasses of wine at a dinner party or something like that. So it's not something that I fear anymore, because I had this fear of it. But it's definitely something that molded my decision in that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And then, so you went to a junior college, right? And someone helped you figure that out. And then what did you do next?
And then the guidance counselor there at the junior college at El Camino, that you're probably familiar with,
Yeah.
helped me apply for Cal State Fullerton. I chose accounting because I took accounting class in high school, and I loved that class. And they always said, if you know the debits and credits, if you get it, you should do it, because not a lot of people
get it. Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, where's the jobs? Okay, accounting. Okay, I could do this.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's inspirational.
Yeah.
That's what this is about, being brave. You took brave action.
I did, yeah.
Did you ever feel like this is too much for me and I want to quit? And
yeah, I did. I was in probably my last year of college, and I was taking a tax class that I absolutely did not enjoy. And it was a struggle for me. And my brother passed away. So, he was...
That same semester?
Yeah, he was using a lot. He was in and out of prison a lot. And he was in an unsafe situation, and he was killed. And so that was a time where I really felt completely overwhelmed, that I wanted to give up. And I didn't really... It was like, what's the point, right? What's the point in doing all of this work and trying to get good grades? And so... yeah, that was really tough.
Yeah, what made you keep going?
I think the dream. The dream that I knew I wanted something different from my life. I didn't want to end up like my parents, like my siblings, and like everything else that I had seen. I wanted something different. And so I got back up. I asked for forgiveness from the people that I had. I didn't necessarily get an A in that tax class, so I had to accept that.
Yeah, but on your diploma, it doesn't say what your grades were.
Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You just have to pass your classes.
And I sat, at the end of my career, I sat right next to people who had gone to USC and got straight A's. And we were doing the same thing, making similar money. And so does it really matter at the end of the day? You just got to finish.
You got to finish. Yeah, it's so funny. I love that you shared that story with us. When I was pregnant with our second child, when I was finishing up my degree at Cal State Long Beach, and I already had a toddler, and John ran a huge, I think a mortgage company back in the day. He was gone all the time. I had 18 units, and I was pregnant, and I was throwing up all over campus, and because I get really sick, so I had a bucket or trash bag with me all the time, and I was going to give up. I was done. I just couldn't go on. I was done. And John told me, you can't give up now. You have to keep going. You're just really close. You're so close. And it's so funny is I took my midterms and I got all A's on them. And I thought, holy crap, if I fail all my finals, I'm still going to graduate.
There you go.
It was so exciting, right? And aren't you glad that you stuck it out?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because you didn't turn out like your parents. You let the dream decide.
I did. And my kids do not know their parents as ever being drunk. And so we broke that cycle, and I'm very proud of that.
You broke the cycle generationally. And going forward, it's broken. And when we break a negative, toxic generational cycle like that, the future for your children is different.
Absolutely.
Do you feel like the framework with what they're growing up in is so different than what you grew up in?
It is. And I struggle sometimes with that because I learned things through difficult times. I'm not necessarily sure how to teach my children the lessons that I got from those things, because I'm so grateful for them. Even though they were hard, they taught me really good lessons. And so I struggle sometimes to figure out, how do I teach my kids how to be responsible? The importance of, endurance and sticking to something and all of those things. And so it's something that we navigate as parents.
We do. There's no roadmap. No one can. These kids don't come with instruction manuals. Dang it.
Exactly.
I was thinking about how you just pointed out that your adversity as a child growing up is what taught you all the lessons that you needed to become the person that you are today. And I think that it's in our adversity that we become, if we choose, the people. It teaches us, and it's out of our ashes, it's out of the darkness that we become light, if we choose.
Beauty for ashes.
Beauty for ashes. And it really, I remember when we first got married, and there was a lady at church, and we were newlyweds and so in love, and she was an older lady, and she got up. I remember her name was Minnie. Wasn't her name Minnie Rich? Mm-hmm. She got up and she spoke about how she loved all of the challenges and adversity she had in her life. And I thought, she's crazy. Why would you want to have challenges and adversity in your life, right? Because I was immature and young, and I just didn't see the wisdom in it. And I was like, I'm going to avoid that. I'm going to do everything right. And I'm going to try and avoid all the pitfalls in life, right?
Yeah.
And I think to myself that the resilience comes from picking yourself back up.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you think you're going to avoid all of those pitfalls, you're going to fall into it blindly. And then you're going to be like, wow, what happened? Right.
You can't avoid pitfalls.
Yeah.
Life is going to happen.
Yeah.
We're all going to have stuff. People are going to die. People are going to disappoint you. You may have financial problems. Yeah, your life might not turn out the way you expected. You can't make your kids turn out the way you want them to. They're free agents.
Yeah.
So there's so many opportunities for growth, really.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad, Jennifer, that you shared that story with us, because that is what this is about, being brave. And I want people to take brave action and to bet on themselves. You bet on yourself.
Yes, 100%. And I'm doing it again.
You're doubling down.
Yeah.
I predict that your business is going to be very successful, and that it's because you're going to impact so many people in a positive way, the organizations, but the individuals in the organizations. And as you impact one by one in the organizations, that you will see the impact also, but they'll go home and it'll impact their families. It'll impact their personal lives, their lives with their families, their lives with their friends. It's not just you're impacting corporations and businesses, but when we impact one person and they live in more joy, it's just like the ripple effect. It's going to go, and I predict it's going to be big.
Well, I am accepting that. Amen to that, because my dream is really that the organizations and the individuals that work with me and my team will be impacted in a way that encourages them to impact others, right? So the philanthropy that comes out of corporations, the impact on relationships that individuals have and with their homes and their husbands and their children. So yes, that really is my intention.
Yeah, it's good. And so really I want you guys, think about where you work and think about reaching out and having Jennifer come and impact your business, because when people are more joyful, they do so much more. Even I love selling real estate. I love it. But working on this project of spreading love and joy, I'll stay up all night almost if I have to get this stuff done. And John Lowe stays up even later. I go to bed because I'm tired, and he'll stay up even later. When people are in joy, they are more productive because they feel better, they're happier, and they're enjoying what they're doing, and so they don't even realize they're working because it's bringing them joy.
Absolutely.
And that's what we all want to experience anyway, right? So we're going to leave you guys with that. And we love you. I see greatness in you. I hope you'll take brave steps towards your goals and dreams. If you're feeling down, just remember, I believe in you. Jennifer believes in you. We see greatness in you. And thank you for listening. I hope that you'll like and subscribe to the podcast, that you'll share this with other people, and you can hit the bell to get notifications. And I can't wait for the next person we're going to interview. And please get the book, When Love Speaks. It's coming out December 8th. It's going to be in Rolling Stone magazine. That's a real publication.
Gift guide.
In the gift guide, right? It's going to be in the gift guide. See, she knows more than me. She's awesome. In the gift guide. And I'm telling you right now, you buy several copies because it's going to be It's
It's
going
going
to
to be awesome, and it'll be a great gift.
Yeah, and people will enjoy it and treasure it. Anyway, we love you, and we'll talk to you later.